her and let her share her screen.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm going to mute. How do I mute? So I just started this brand new job right before the summit, and thank you, Slack. Okay, you might see my Slacks. I don't know. I think I muted it. Let me share. Share. Let's do this screen. Sure. And then we will. Oh, you're going to ruin the super chicken surprise. That's okay. There we go. All right.
Perfect.
So good morning to everyone who's joined. It's morning where I am here. You are my first meeting of the day. I'm going to talk to you about managing yourself and others in the workplace. So my name is Blythe. I've been in the SQL Server data platform space my entire career. I've been working with SQL Server. I started working for the PASS organization and then moved. I was the community coordinator. And then I moved into consulting and have been a consultant for most of my career. Most recently, I took the Senior Director of Partnerships and Alliances position at Fortified. We do SQL Server monitoring and FinOps. And I think I just did I think it was my 15th year anniversary, or next year's my 15th year anniversary of past summits. So this is my community. I'm so happy to be talking to you today. I actually had the honor of creating the very first DataWit virtual chapter when I was the community coordinator. So the fact that this is still going, it's just amazing to me. So I talk a lot about communication and management. So if you've seen me speak at the summit, you know that I talk a lot about how to ask for a raise, how to advocate for yourself inside of the business, and then also like just how to be a better communicator so that you can talk about the value that the data platform brings to the business. I want to start this whole session by talking about chickens. This is my favorite picture ever. I found this picture before AI. I don't know. I'm a weightlifter myself. It's how I feel strong and powerful in my life. And so the fact that chickens have biceps and thumbs up is it just tickles, or it like satisfies something deep inside me. So I'm going to start with just some research that I found. There was an evolutionary biologist at Purdue University who he wanted to study how to make chickens the most productive. And we measure productivity in chickens typically by how many eggs they lay, right? So he devised a beautiful experiment. He selected just an average flock, right? So he like drew a line. He's like, these random chickens over here, they're going to be my average flock. And he left that flock alone for 6 generations. And then he created a second flock. And this flock had the most productive, individually the most productive chickens in it. So he selected the ones that laid the most eggs. And then for each generation, he selected only the most productive for breeding. All right, for 6 generations, he worked to kind of like create this super productive super chicken flock. All right, so after 6 generations, the average flock, they were doing just fine. They were plump, they were fully feathered, and the egg production had increased dramatically. Okay, and if you go to the second group, right, the super chicken group, you'd think that, okay, well, you're self-selecting for the most productive chickens. It must have been an order of magnitude more productive than the average flock. But that's not what happens. Okay, in the second group, all but 3 chickens were dead. they had pecked the rest to death. Oh my God, right? So the individually productive chickens had only achieved their success by suppressing the productivity of the rest, which I find really interesting. And when I've given this talk a couple of times, and every single time I give it, someone inevitably is like, I love the super chicken analogy. That's me. That's my work life. That's my life, right? My company hires for the studs, the rock stars, the most productive people, right? But then the reality of what that looks like on a team is that their productivity really only exists because it's trying to suppress the productivity of other people. And so then you're on a team with a lot of conflict and politics, and you need to really think about how you maneuver in that very, very sometimes toxic environment. And I think, most of us you've been in a toxic environment at some point in your career or in your personal life. You kind of know what happens to your body and to your emotional state when that's the case, right? And so what really encouraged me to create this session was, realizing that over the course of it was when I got out of a toxic workplace relationship and I was thinking about what the next step was going to be. And I realized that I've been told like my entire life that the way to get ahead is to compete. You compete to get into the right school, to get the right job, to get to the top. And I stopped finding it really inspiring, right? I want to like work beside creative people who are making things that customers and that other people in the market feel inspired by. And I mean, I've been creating communities my entire career. I wanted to continue to do that, but how do I do that in a competitive, super chicken type workplace? And I started doing some research of what it means to be on a good team and not just what it means to manage other people on a team, but what it means to be a good person to work with. And so I'm going to share some of that research with you today. This is just my journey of where I've been and what conclusions I've kind of come to. And I'm so curious as to your what you guys think about this. Okay, so because I think I've delivered this 3 times now. It is completely evolved. Sorry, but I've all the 3 times I've done this, it was to pretty much an all male audience. You guys are all women, and I'm so curious about the juxtaposition between what I'm going to talk about. So here are our topics. The first is obviously like that team functioning, what it means to be happy at work, how you can find happiness at work, and how you can recognize it with others on your teams. And then we're going to get into kind of like leadership and influence in the workplace, right? Because a lot of folks are that's the next step, right? The next step is truly influencing decisions that are made at work. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can do that. Okay. So let's start at the very, very, very basics. We've got an hour here, so I'm just going to present some Gallup research for those of you who've never heard of Gallup or done any kind of workplace personality tests or anything like this. This is like one of the personality workplace research pieces in the entire world. It's what everybody kind of follows. The most popular book that has come out of this research is called Strength Finders. If you've ever encountered that before. So they interviewed employees at 30,000 different workplaces. And this research is still ongoing today. They are still asking the same questions. If you go to gallup.com, you can consume, most of it is free. They figured out that there are 12 questions to ask to determine if someone is happy at work. And this is like an inverted pyramid here. The we go obvious, and it kind of looks like a Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like with the pyramid here. And so the first piece, the first kind of like basic questions are, I know what is expected of me at work, and it's kind of like a 10-point sliding scale, one being I don't know, and 10 being like, yeah, we got this. And the second is I have the materials and equipment to do my job right. So this is really interesting, very interesting to me as database and technologists, because those questions are not like, you think, okay, well, I mean, do I have the materials and equipment? I mean, I have a laptop, and I have, I have a headset that I can wear, and the company's given me multiple screens, and I mean, I have an office chair, but it's more than that, right? As because the question is, are you actually being supported so you can meet the expectations of your jobs? And there's a huge equipment component to that, right? Um, are you given the appropriate budget to execute your jobs? Are you given the you know the cloud budgets and the hardware costs? Or does the company listen to you when you need more of it as it grows, right? These are really, and this is kind of like the basic needs. Do you know what is expected of me at work as a technologist? That expectation can change in a minute, right? All of a sudden we have everybody's talking about LLMs and AI. Is there an expectation that you have to know that work? And if you don't know it, and you don't know how it applies to your specific business, are you uh, are you failing to meet expectations? Is that true? And we saw this in 2007, 2008, when all of a sudden it was all about moving to the cloud. I remember that. That was very early in my career, but it was so sudden, right? All of a sudden, Microsoft has decided that the cloud is the next thing, and all the DBAs had to understand what that meant and then be able to apply it to their business, and their jobs completely changed. And so those two fundamental basic questions for us in this industry is, it's not so black and white. And then we move on, right? Do you have an opportunity to do what you do best every day? Do you, when you just crush it, does somebody actually point that out? Because you're much more likely to find satisfaction in work if somebody recognizes it, right? And I really appreciate the, does someone care about me as a person? We're going to talk about this when we get to management and leadership, but it is so important that as leaders on our team, that we actually give a shit about the people who work with us. But like, really, you know what I mean? Not fake. How are the people on your team doing? Really? Do you know? That is the difference between loving showing up to work every day and just having it be something that you do in between when life happens. Just your like most productive, best brain hours, right? So you can use this to figure out if you yourself are happy, because sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you like the work, you hate the people. Sometimes you're unsure of yourself, but you like your team, and you're not sure if you're being successful at work, and it's causing friction in like your contentment levels. You can use this to figure out what it is that's missing. This was really helpful for me as I transitioned out of my last role, when I knew it was time, right? So I want to talk a little bit about finding your place at work. At this point, I would do a survey of who is a manager. Let's do this. Can you guys put your hand up in the Teams meeting here? You're all off camera, and that's totally fine. But can you put your hand up if you are a manager, you are direct report to people, or if you have aspirations to become a people manager, and it is totally fine if you don't. So just put up your, you can actually turn your camera on, but you can also just, okay, so 1, 2, and this is totally typical of a group of data folks where I have only a couple people who are a manager, want to be a manager. So I did this talk in Amsterdam, Utrecht, for the past roadshow, and I had a group of 40 people in the session, and only 3 people wanted to be a manager. So this is really, really normal, and we're going to talk about why right now. So finding your place on a team really involves a combination of 3 things. And this goes back to this, hold on, where is my mouse? This goes back to this pyramid here of really getting to the top of that pyramid and finding what you are the best at, but doing it in a way that works for you. And it's really understanding where you fit in the combination of skills, knowledge, and talent. So let me just explain each one. So this is because it's kind of self-evident, but not in the way you think. So a skill is the know-how of a role. So for a DBA, let's say the skill you need for this role is the ability to write T-SQL. That's a skill. Okay, you can learn it. You can go and you can take one of Eric Darling's classes and you can level up that exact skill. Okay. And as a manager or a team member, like as a manager, I can send you to a conference. I can send you to the past conference. So if you need a brush up in the ability to write T-SQL, right? So knowledge is it's just simply like what you're aware of at any given time. It can be broken down to factual knowledge, like you read a book about how to make a database environment GDPR compliant, right? Like you know it, you've read it, you've got it down packed. But then there is a different type of knowledge that's called experimental. And that is knowing how to make a database environment GDPR compliant because you had to, because you got in trouble because it wasn't, right? And so they're just 2 different types of knowledge. One has experience, right, involved. And then there's talent. Talent is like this incredible thing. It's not necessarily what you're born with, right? It is a naturally recurring pattern of thought. So you can cultivate it. But it's much harder. Thought, feeling, or behavior. Sorry. Cultivating recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior. And it can be productively applied. So I'm not going to go through the whole like strength find. There are like defined talents that Gallup has, but I'm not going to go through them. If you want to do strength finders tests and learn what your talents are, you are more than welcome to do that. There are tons of those questionnaires online, but all the talents filter down into 3 different types. So there's striving, relating, and analyzing talents. Okay, so a striving talent is the why behind a person's actions. So these are like people who have a lot of striving talents are deeply motivated and deeply driven. They are competitive. They have a desire to achieve. They have a hunger to learn, right? A relating talent is someone that builds and maintains connections. Like all of my strengths are in this one. Like this is just like I am a relator, right? That's personally who I am. And then the analyzing or the thinking talents are people who are driven to understand the how of the world. They want to absorb, they want to analyze, they want to solve problems. I am married to one of these. Oh my gosh, I just love watching how his brain works because I do not think like this. at all, right? There's a lot of strategic thinking, a lot of focused curiosity, and with that curiosity comes creativity. Amazing. Analyzing people blow my mind because I couldn't be less an analyzer. That's probably why I like working with data people and technical people, because you all kind of, I see a lot of that in this profession. And so if we think that a team is typically made up of people with all different types of talents, different knowledge and different skills, right? There's like there's the people from all different types of like matrices of those three things. And then those three things break down into even more talent. What's the magic? Why is it that some teams, some groups of people are so much better than others? Why do some companies just seem to be better to work for? Their employees are happier. They love the people they work with. Individually, they seem happy at work, but as a team, they are so productive. Right. And so I thought about the super chickens where we kind of had this organic, just control group that were highly productive. But I like to think that human beings are a bit more complex than that, especially at work. So I wanted to understand what made these people more, some people in some companies and some teams more productive than others. You see this inside of businesses too, right? Like some divisions or and teams are they just gel and they support each other and they're happy at work, and some are quite dysfunctional. So went back to the research as one does, and I asked this question. So I found a piece of research from MIT. So they brought in hundreds of volunteers. This was actually quite a large study, and this was less than 10 years ago. So I still really relevant to how we work today. They just randomly chose people. They put them in groups of 6, okay, and they gave them really hard problems to solve. And then what happened was pretty much what you would expect. Some groups were much, much more productive than others. Some were more successful at solving those problems than others. But what they observed was that the high achieving groups were not those that had people who had the highest IQs. Instead, they were able to break it down to 3 characteristics. So the first one was that the groups that were successful, they found they called it a high degree of social sensitivity to each other. So, and this was MIT measured this by something called the mind's eye test, and so it's broadly considered the test for empathy, right? So it's eye contact with people who are talking. So if someone is talking, the mind's eye test ranks how long people were looking at that person in the eye. The second success criteria is that the groups that gave roughly equal time to each other so that no one voice dominated were more successful. And the third criteria, and I just found this to be very, this satisfied me deep inside my soul, was that there were more women on the team. The groups that had more women in them were more successful. Now, they did say that there could be a doubling down on that mind's eye test for the first criteria, because women tend to be more empathetic and we tend to communicate that way. It said that in the research, and I found that interesting, but that was not conclusive. So if we go back to Gallup and we look at questions 3 and 4 and 6, it kind of makes sense, right? And so when you have contentment on a team, or contentment at an individual contribution level, right? So you're in that top, top of the triangle. You tend to be more productive. And if you're more productive, then as a team, a bunch of individuals that make a team, your team tends to be more successful. Huh, go figure. I mean, it seems so simple, but the fact that all of the research backs this up is quite remarkable, right? Because if you think about some of the ways that our kind of like corporate structure prioritizes competition and competition and competitiveness, right? Competition and individualism at work. But all the research tells us that the most productive teams are the ones where they're all ensuring each other's contentment and happiness. Oh, just amazing to me. Just love it. So I want to talk about managers. And I know that a lot of you don't individually want to be a manager of people. And I appreciate that. But I would say that as you become long in the tooth in your career, once you get up 10, 15 years in your career, whether you like it or not, you are in a leadership position. You may not have direct line reports, but it's important that you incorporate leadership qualities into your role. You will be able to mentor younger people much better. You can create a sense of cohesiveness on a team with your manager, and you can really impact productivity and visibility of your team to its leadership. And so 4 tips of great managers. Of course, you have to understand your team. You have to see their talents. You have to understand what you can develop and what you can't. What is a talent? What is skill? And what is knowledge? Both experiential and factual, right? Where does this person sit on the matrix of all of that? And what can you change? And what do you just need to let it be, right? Again, you can do this as an IC, as an individual contributor, um, but you need to work with your managers, and I guarantee that they will appreciate it. It is appropriate for you to encourage the development of others on your team with your manager. It's appropriate, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. Um, the other piece I want to talk about is setting expectations. We talked about the bare minimum being understanding what is expected of you at work. You need those expectations and clarity around performance and resource allocation. Um, and again, it needs to be more than just laptops and monitors. It needs to be understanding what the business needs from your team and then making it clear what resources they need to give you in order for you to achieve that. And there's a little bit of influence and advocacy that needs to happen for a lot of us to be able to get there. This is a tough one for DBAs because often you're not speaking the language of business, which is money, right? You're speaking the language of performance and like CPUs and IOs and some of the language that you report up might get lost in translation. So understanding and setting expectations both up and down and working with your managers to do that's a leadership quality that I think is really, really important and can greatly impact your career and make you more visible at work. And let's talk about development. So you guys are all here because you want to be better professionals. And I so appreciate that. But as a manager or as like a senior IC on the team, investing in people's development, asking questions about what they're curious about, what they want to learn about, shows that you care about the people on your team. And I challenge you to ask yourself, when was the last time you asked a junior person on your team what they were interested in and how they saw their career going? I think it's so incredibly important, and it gets people motivated. Um, and for me, development needs to follow interest, right? And so when one second here, I'm just out of it. Dog is barking. Sorry about that. Um, when people tell you what they're interested in terms of career development, you find out what they're like as a person, right? You learn a lot about a person by asking questions about what they want to do with their career and what they want to learn. And it's a great way to connect with each other. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. Are there any questions so far? Any thoughts? Anyone want to pop in with an anecdote? I can keep going. Oh, Amy. Amy, you are on mute if you wanted to ask a question.
Here we are. Yes.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I had two people who told me that at work that they are not my assistants. They don't have to listen to me or do what I say. And when I escalated this, I was told that I was an individual contributor, and at no time, this one gentleman in particular, did he want any kind of mentoring whatsoever. So I wondered what you would do if you were in my place.
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I mean, if you were being kind and supportive to someone on your team, as someone who has a different skill set or knowledge base than this guy, and he came at you this way, I'm sorry that happened to you, because that's not a friendly way to do business or to speak to a colleague. I think the best way to handle folks like that is, instead of direct mentoring, take interest in them, right? Do it from a perspective of curiosity, of what they're working on and what they're interested in. And then you can just naturally share your knowledge as they get excited about what they are interested in. That's how I would do it. But man, that team sounds pretty dysfunctional if that's the reaction. And oof. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for your input and advice.
Yeah, you're welcome. And does anyone else have anything? Okay, I'm going to keep going, but I will say, I did the WIT panel at PASS 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I had someone come up to me who was just promoted to a manager, but the person she'd managed was best friends with her boss, and she was finding it very difficult to direct this person. And I would say that sometimes we have aspects of our job where we need to execute something and we are not being set up for success by the business. In her case, this was her direct boss, but it could be a different department. It could be the CEO that you never do business with, right? And a lot of that stems from the expectation or understanding what the expectation is of what you're supposed to do at work. And that is you not being set up for success. That is not your like puzzle to figure out. It's a frank conversation with, I say, the business, but it's your manager or your manager's manager or a department head in a different division. saying this is what I'm responsible for, and here's why it is impossible for me. Let's figure out a way for us to make this happen. And so I want to be clear that I'm not presenting this data to you with, okay, now you have all the tools and you can go and figure it out. Sometimes it's a hard conversation with the people that you need to be productive with, about the fact that you can't be productive. But this gives you a framework to understand what it is, right? What is it that that's getting in the way of us being a good team and supporting, whatever business objective we have. Okay. So this kind of goes with the next part about this is
You've got a raised hand, so I think someone has a question.
Amy,
They want to come off mute.
I'll just put that down. I can't. Oh, lower my hand. Sorry.
Oh,
weird.
sorry.
Normally,
Maybe not a question.
Normally, when you speak, it kind of pulls the hand down. That's weird. So, the great corporate fallacy. Oh my gosh, I learned this the hard way, and I'm excited to tell you about it so you don't make my mistake here. Okay. The greatest lie that corporations teach us, or they tell us, is that for each rung of the ladder that you climb at work, okay, all you do is you find a little bit more complex version of the previous role, right? So all you need to do if you move from an IC to a director is repeat the success you had at the last job, add a little bit of training, and boom, management. How long do you think on average it takes one person to achieve excellence in their given careers? Well, I'll tell you. We don't need to put hands up or do a poll here. There was a team at Northwestern University that kind of scrutinized this. I could not find data for the IT discipline, but this one had kind of made a really good just swath of random careers and kind of averaged them together. So they did world-class chess players, musicians, mathematics, neurologists, swimmers, and sculptors. I thought that was kind of a good pull from different talent pools. And it took 17.4 years, or between 10 and 18, to achieve mastery. And so how in the world could you go from mastering the data platform, mastering this DBA data discipline, which is really freaking hard, right? Depending on your environment, obviously, to then being a manager of people, to then being responsible for the business KPIs, the key performance indicators that the business needs to achieve, and matching that to IT, plus being a people manager, plus understanding the data platform. How could it just be a little bit more work? And so the best managers and the best leaders, they know that one rung does not necessarily lead to another, right? There are people out there who are oh, this person, she's such a good DBA. She's so good at her work. You know what? I think we're going to promote her to a data architect. And then assume that you can repeat the work that you did as a DBA and the success you've had doing that, and then just plunk on top some extra little training to be a great data architect in the same way you're a great DBA. Oh, and then after you're done that, we could have you be the director of IT and lead a team of 18. And we'll just promote you up to director because you're so good at your data architect job. Well, no, that's not. There's the skills and the knowledge that you need is so fundamentally different, right? And so how do we rethink this so that there is prestige and payment and salary for each level? And I think there are a couple industries that have really figured this out. The first is law firms. I love looking at different industries and what they're doing, right? Because it gives us really great ideas we can adapt into our own. I mean, a law firm, you specialize in a specific type of law. You're an environmental lawyer, and then you're a junior associate, and then you are a associate. You're still in environmental law. You're a senior associate. Then you're a junior partner, a partner, then a senior partner, and you're always practicing in your field. The last company I worked for all of its faults, they had this. I worked for Solar Winds. Maybe some of you know. We do. They did database. I still said we. They did database monitoring software, and they do. They have. I wrote this down. Specialists, consultants, program managers, senior staff managers, principal managers, fellows, and then a distinguished fellow, which was the senior VP level. So I just want you to think about what it means to want to be a director or to want to be a VP of technology. If you have those ambitions, if you're like the striving talent, right? Like you're competitive and you want that for yourself, think about what does it mean to be successful in that role? And I challenge you to think not just being good at your current role, right? There's a level of the people management and business management, and it is its own discipline, and you need to be curious about that, and you need to go and learn those skills and acquire that knowledge and demonstrate that you have it. Okay. I still have 10 minutes. Okay, I have a lot of content in this session, so I could like literally talk for a while. So I want to talk about feedback. I think it's one of the things that we struggle with the most in corporate environments. We are afraid of conflict and therefore just naturally kind of shy away from giving feedback or asking for it. I love the idea of radical candor in a team environment. I think letting someone know when they are not picking up their slack or when their work is negatively impacting yours, and also giving feedback that is productive is so, I mean, it really make or breaks a team. And so I would start, if this is an area of like conflict is an area of struggle for you, I would start by asking for feedback. So let your manager know that you are going to try giving and receiving feedback. It's kind of an area of opportunity for you. And then start asking for direct feedback about how you're working with others, the quality of your work. If you don't have regular performance reviews and can have those conversations like formalized, and also ask about what other people on the team think of you. Start with that. And then when someone gives you that feedback, when your manager freely gives it, think about feedback as your opportunity to be even better than you are. It is a gift when someone tells you that they didn't appreciate something or that that you could do something better in the future. And know that just like you, everybody else struggles to give feedback, and you get dysfunction in the things that you never say. I really believe clarity is kindness. And so if you start building a practice on your team of saying, this thing happened and it is impacting my work and I'm not happy about it. Can we work through this? Oh my gosh, the air will clear and the work gets better. But it takes a lot of practice to be able to do it. All right. Managing up. So most of the conversation I've had right now has been about managing down or across, but let's talk about managing up. So not only do you need to help manage the expectation of the business's expectation of your role as it changes, right? And you do that with your direct manager. But you also want people across your organization to hear about your work, right? Like you want your work to be visible, especially across the entire IT organization, depending on how large it is. But I mean, ideally across the business as a whole. The data platform folks tend to be quite invisible. It's well known that the silent DBA, right? If everything is working great, we should never hear from you. But that's not what we're going to do. All right, we're going to try to elevate the data platform team as a strategic partner in the growth of the business. And the way you do that is by managing what your manager hears and then how that story is told across an organization. And so you are partnering with your manager to help tell that story. So when you have your one-on-ones or your sprint reviews, or however you report up your work, you need to think about not just the conversation happening one-to-one between you and your manager or within your team, but then how that story gets shared. And then support your whomever tells that story, whether it's your direct manager or the director or the VP above them, support them in adding the context that they need to tell that story across your organization. That's how you get more budget. That's how you make more money. That's how you can ask for a larger raise, because your name and your team's name is being told inside of those success stories. Does that make sense? I have a whole other session on how to do that, but I've got 8 minutes left. So, but really start thinking about, the positive rumor mill, right? All right. I'm going to skip this bit. Hold on. I am going to go. You know what? I can do this. I can do this in 10 minutes. Let's do it. All right. Let's talk about influence. 8 minutes. We got this. So I've just talked about how we struggle to elevate our work across an organization. And I think a huge component of that is what your managers or what your business leaders are hearing and why they're not prioritizing your projects. Okay. So this is influence theory. All right. Let's understand the problem. So your work, first and foremost, is seen as a cost and often not as an investment. We talked about the mismatched communication styles, right? Of the language that the business uses to achieve its goals versus the language that the infrastructure teams and the data teams talk and how they talk about success. And then there's this direct impact. So if you're silent, everything's good. And the only time they hear from you is when something's down. People can't buy, employees can't work. And so there's also a lot of movement inside of IT for a lot of organizations, not all, but sometimes your manager's going to be, or the manager's going to be moved on to the next project in 12 months, and fixing something that is systemic, that is important but non-urgent, is just not a priority. All right. So that is why when you ask for, an application to be, re-architected because it's so unreliable and it really impacts the performance of your database infrastructure, that's why they're saying no. It's for those reasons. And so how can we understand our leaders and reframe those conversations? And so I have, just trying to think. So I have a number of them. I'm going to go through 3. Okay. So I want to let's say I need some code refactored in an application, like, right? So that I can make sure that the database performs and the app doesn't crash every other minute for our users. If I need to talk to the business, I'm going to do it in a couple ways. And I always use cognitive bias. If you've ever been to one of my sessions before, I talk about this stuff nonstop because I think it's so great. And now that we have ChatGPT, you can even get ChatGPT to do the work for you. So you can put in the issue that you have and say, use these 3 cognitive biases to help me frame this email I have to send. And then you can choose the best one that speaks to your manager's language. So let's talk a little bit about loss aversion. Oh, a cognitive bias, for those people who don't know, is where your thinking doesn't quite go right? Like you just kind of like, there's a bias inside your brain or inside of everyone's brain to think about a problem in a very in a non-logical type way. A loss aversion frame is that we as human beings, we experience a loss more severely than a gain. So the prospect of losing $10 is more daunting than the thrill of winning 10 economically, even though economically it's like the same thing, right? And so a lot of times we're always talking about like the benefits. If we did these things, we would experience this benefit. If we did this, we could have this. If we did this, we could have this. But sometimes you need to talk about where you stand to lose, and the impact of that can be larger. The second one I want to talk about is the opportunity cost frame. I mean, anytime you do something, you forgo doing something else, right? We talk about this a lot in IT. So anytime you spend $1 on this thing over here, you're forgoing $1 of this thing that you're spending over here. An opportunity cost is something that a business person really understands. And it's good also when you need to push back a little bit when the business is trying to put pressure on you to take on a project or to move the needle in a direction that won't work for your specific team or your business. And opportunity cost is a great way to do it. And then I'll just do the third one, which is the experience frame. This is a transformational way to frame what you need to influence at work. So, this is where you paint a picture of success. I want you to imagine what the experience of not having to sit and wait for this application to load for 4 seconds every time you want to load a page. What that experience will be like for our customers or for our users. And if you can kind of paint that experience from their point of view, you are much more likely to fairly or to value a universal set of experiences, right? We're like, oh yeah, I mean, you can put yourself in that person's shoes. And I think that is a cognitive bias where people are like, oh yeah, that would be really nice because they can like see and feel that experience. And it can be very subtle, but it can be really powerful. So there are a number of other biases you can use. And I implore you, if you need something done, have a conversation with the robot and try to frame it in a number of different ways. I use cognitive bias. There are about 10 of them. ChatGPT will know them, and try to think about how you can elevate your position in your business and get the resources and the decisions made that you need to. Okay. So thank you. I'm Blythe. This is me. And thanks for being here today. Are there any We're right at time, so I know if you've got another meeting, just go, man. You're not no bad feelings. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
That
Blythe.
was fantastic. It
Oh.
really resonated with me, like when you were talking about like the women's team, like when you have a lot of women on a team, because my team actually was all women for a couple of years. And it was really disruptive on, the script being completely flipped and you never hear of this. It was really disruptive when we first had a guy come on our team, and it was like, oh my God, because we were so used to that dynamic of everybody being really nice and polite, and so that really resonated
Yeah, but
with me
also,
when you said it.
also like supportive, right?
Yeah,
And
no,
like,
100%.
yeah. And man, if you get to work with a man that is like that, it is, I mean, you never let that
Yeah.
guy go.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really believe in that. And I've watched how much things change when you actually really start caring about people. Not like the fake caring, like the quick
Yeah.
updates of like, how was your daughter's recital? Oh, it was good. Oh, cool. Okay, so on to business. Like that is not caring. That is an
Yeah,
update.
yeah.
But when you really care about someone, your entire relationship with them changes. So
What do you suggest then for, so that's really interesting because me being neurospicy, I don't always know those social cues, right? So I'll literally have to put in a thing like a reminder, like ask about this, ask about that. And it's not that I don't care about the person, it's just like I just translate it different. So what do how would somebody like in that realm kind of navigate this? And I suspect that maybe guys have a little bit of this just normally, naturally. I don't know.
I like I like the idea of writing things down. I have in my phone, because I really like to text with people. I'm a texter. I'm a true millennial that way. So I have so many people's numbers from the summit, etc. And
Nice.
but I'll write down, like, if someone tells me that they have 2 daughters and that one daughter has a boyfriend and he really hopes that his daughter marries this guy because he really likes this guy, I write down the daughter's name, the boyfriend's name, and I just like put it in their contact, and I just do that. And because I'm a relator and it's how I'm wired, it is my talent, and it's like my superpower. I'm really good at remembering. But if you know logically that people will treat you differently if you remember those things, why wouldn't you write it down?
Yeah, that's almost like, so I can kind of relate that back to like what salespeople have to do, right? You look at a salesperson's contact list and they have a whole note section, and then I've seen it before and I was like, wow, that's really, that's how they know when they call me a year later, like things that I'm like, what?
Yeah, or they could just be really good at remembering, or you could just be a really special person worth remembering. You don't know.
Well, but I mean, the idea of like taking it from like for a neurospicy person like me, like thinking a bit of a salesperson, what do they do? And okay, so that may assist me because my short-term memory, like,
Well, and remember that people do business with people they like, know, and trust. That works for sales, that works for leadership, and that also works it works across every single business through the history of time ever, truly.
excellent.
And I really believe that. Yeah.
Thank you again.
You're
Great
welcome.
discussion.
You're welcome.